and welcome to the Strategy and Policy Committee meeting, which has been convened this morning for the purposes of hearing submissions on the Public Places, Parks and Reserves Bylaw. And after we've heard submissions, we're going to get into deliberations about making a recommendation to Council about the way forward. We'll start off with our opening karakia that I think Julian's going to offer for us. Thank you, Julian. Just bear with me while I figure out how to do this. Doesn't seem to be coming up, Anna. What do I like this? Here, Julian.
Morena tātou.
We've got two shots now.
Morena tātou. He karakia timatanga. E oha ki runga ki a ranganui, e oha ki raro ki a papatūnuku. Tura kina nā mea kino ki te pai ātea. Ui hia mai o korowai aroha. Hei tanga ngā mātou, ka puta ki te waiao ki ao te marama, humie huie taikie. I acknowledge, greet those things above, the sky, the universe, the heavens. I acknowledge and greet those things below, the earth in all its entirety. Cast all negativity to the distant horizons, cover us with the cloak of affection and love as a treasure bestowed upon us, so we may enter into enlightenment. Let it be bound and fixed, yes, fixed, let it be agreed by all. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora. Thank you, Adrian. Julian. Would we like to stand and sing our waiata? It's not actually ours, we've borrowed it. Thank you. I heard some quite delightful singing coming from behind me. Well done, team. We've got apologies from Councillor Glenda Brown, and we're noting that Jenny is on leave of absence, Councillor Jenny Duncan. I'll move that apology be accepted. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Charlie. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Thank you. Well, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Rachel Hampton. Rachel's going to speak to her submission this morning. So the floor is yours, Rachel.
Kia ora, everyone. Welcome to Parks Reserves hearing of 2023. My name is Rachel Francis Hampton. I'm speaking on behalf of the dog kennel and dog walkers of Wanganui. For a long time now, there's been a debate over what to do with Intimity Reserve in the near future, and how to keep all parties happy, including the Dog Kennel Club, the Council, and the families of the beloved fur babies on a daily basis. Since coming to the dog park with my beloved Ollie, I've noticed that key things need to be enhanced in our beloved dog park. For example, the most pressing need is for public toilets in the area. As outlined in the diagram provided, the path has extended the whole way round Otamati Park Reserve for dog lovers of Wanganui and the disabled people of Kowhanui Rest Home and Living Waters Rest Home. It is both unsanitary and degrading for people to attend to their toileting needs in this manner. Not only the risk of identification and subsequent humiliation, but it is not acceptable that a well-used public area is used as a toilet facility. The health of the children who may play in the bushes should also be considered. The solution is obvious: a public toilet facility to give citizens privacy and dignity when using the reserve. Additionally, the reserve is used for the dog agility competitions, where the numbers of attendees can be around 100. It is not appropriate that no toileting facilities are available for the groups of this size. A fenced playground for entertainment for the summer months. Putting a fenced playground in for the kids for entertainment during the dog agility competitions in the summer months for local kids to stem their boredom during the school holidays. Peat Park has a toilet and a playground combined. Why not Otamati Reserve? Picnic tables won't go amiss. Providing picnic tables alongside the playground would give parents and visitors to the park somewhere to eat their lunch and watch their kids frolic in the summer months. Swing gates. The swing gates on both ends of the reserve protect our beloved park from boy racers and hoons who frequent the park and destroy our beloved park. A dog-friendly cafe for the poochers and their owners, using the original building of Otamati Dog Reserve for its location, providing coffee, human treats and dog treats for our beloved fur babies, and water galore for our best friends. The council says they have no money to action items, but our beloved community shells out money for dog registration fees each year. Why can't these fees go towards maintaining and looking after our parks and reserves? The benefit of updating Otamati Reserve would outweigh the negatives of not doing anything at all. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to approach me after the hearing. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Rachel. Would you like to take a few questions now?
Yep.
So we'll take questions if you'd like to have any questions of Rachel.
Awesome idea, Rachel. With regards to the funding aspect, is there any appetite for dog owners to put some money towards it?
The dog kennel has tried to fundraise. I'm not too sure on that one. I have to get back to you.
No worries, but do you think there's appetite, as in do you think people would be keen if there was a fund to match, and that if we make that fund then it could happen? So I guess...
Yeah, I think it would happen, yeah.
I think I agree with you, 'cause I use the park myself, so yeah.
Thanks, Michael. Councillor Rob.
Thank you, Rachel. Look, both Councillor Ross and myself have been up there with the members of the dog club and also Parks and Reserves. And Parks and Reserves are looking at a program now of upgrades. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am. I actually met Ross up at the dog park and had a brief conversation with him.
Okay. So, have you talked with the parks people?
No, I haven't. No, not yet.
Yes, it seems like there's a bit of an overlap going on here, Madam Chair, and I think it needs to be discussed with the submitter about what is actually happening and what is still required as part of this submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rob. Any other questions? Councillor Philippa.
Thank you, Rachel, and apologies if I'm not understanding completely the submission, and thanks for the drawings. But, sorry, am I correct in thinking you're asking, up at Otamatea, what you're interested in, what you're asking for is public toilets,
Yes.
a playground area,
Fenced off playground.
and a pop-up cafe,
Yes.
and anything else?
And the swing gates to keep the hoons out.
At the Virginia Lake end or both ends?
Both ends.
Okay. And I guess just a follow-up question, have you got the support of residents in the area? And I guess the reason I'm asking some of that because I'm aware of some residents having not totally in support of, I guess, the activities that happen there, you know, anyway at times, and the noise, etc. So, you know, just a question, have you canvassed any support
I've
of the
actually
residents?
talked to the dog walkers, and they're in agreement that something needs to be done. Like public toilets, the swing gates, and the playground that wouldn't go amiss for the kids in the summer months. I mean, Pete Park's got a playground and a toilet combined. Why not Otamatea?
Sorry, follow-up question. The name is at the Dog Obedience Club, but the building there, that you utilise for your offices, I guess, or activity, has that got toilet and facilities within it?
It does have toilet facilities in it, but it's always locked. And we need public toilets on the grounds.
Right, thank you. Let's answer those questions.
Just got a couple of questions. When we talk about swing gates, Rachel, like you can't get a vehicle in from the lake end or the Virginia Road end, but it's out on
It's the
the
State
main road.
Highway 3 end that's the most concern. Is because the boy racers come in at all hours of the night and they rip our dog park apart. Just make a huge mess of it. And I'm sure the police would agree that the swing gates would be advisable to keep the hoons out.
Great, thank you. I'm personally loving the walk around the path all the way around now.
Yeah.
My granddaughter scooters on it and she loves it. Anyway, thank you very much for your presentation here today, Rachel. Really appreciate it. We're going to take a pause now. I think officers have got a presentation for us as part of the deliberations process, so we'll just take a pause for 5 minutes. But thanks very much, Rachel, and you're welcome. meeting and go into deliberations. Thank you. Elise, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you have me today. Unfortunately, Hannah, who has been leading this work and is become an expert in this area, is away sick. So I've stepped in to take you through the deliberations and run the presentation. However, the reason why we've called you in today is that the bylaw will be adopted by Council tomorrow, because Strategy and Policy Committee doesn't have the mandate to adopt it. So we wanted to ensure it could go through at the Council meeting tomorrow. So if there are any questions that I can't answer today, I'll make sure I'll bring them back for tomorrow. But today we're here to consider all of the submissions, including the verbal submission that you've just heard, and then make decisions and make those recommendations up to Council. So just a quick background presentation to take you through this process. So the purpose of the bylaw can be divided broadly into three categories: safety, usability, and the environment. I won't read everything up there on the slide, but it's really there just for your information about why the bylaw exists, and the processes and restrictions, etc., that it provides Council. In addition, it enables Council to provide clarity to the community on booking public places. So for the purposes of this consultation, we've rolled together both a review of the bylaw as well as looking at the fee structure. So just a reminder that the bylaw needs to be reviewed by the end of August or it will lapse. We undertook pre-engagement with some key stakeholders. We brought the draft bylaw and statement of proposal up to the Strategy and Policy Committee on 16th of May, and then we followed the special consultative process which is required for a bylaw. In terms of recommended changes, this really is what we're calling a tidy-up review. So this is not an overhaul, this is really looking at the definitions and the references, updating them, making the bylaw more accessible and clearer where appropriate. We haven't made significant changes. So the key questions that you'll see in the submissions focused on the presence and the form of the bylaw as a whole, rather than specific issues, and the fee structure for booking public places. In terms of consultation, as mentioned, that ran for a full month as required under the special consultative process. It was promoted through community links, social media, and Have Your Say page. We made the hard copies available at the local libraries. And we also shared the material directly with community and interest groups and previous groups and sporting groups who had made bookings. So I think you'll see reflected in the submitters that many of those submitters are key interest groups who have booked parks and public places before. We received 15 formal submissions, as well as some email feedback, and the submissions broadly supported keeping the bylaw as an important protection of our open spaces, supported the proposed changes and the recommended changes to the fee structure. So I'll just take you through each question now. The first question was just really to gauge whether the public still felt that the Public Places Bylaw was required. And 14 out of 15 said yes, with one neither opposing or supporting. And the key reasons were the need to manage how public places are used, and that there needs to be some way of regulating behaviour in these places to ensure safety and protection of the environment. The second question was whether or not the public supported the changes that we had made to the bylaw, and whether we needed to make any further changes. Right? Just listening to the rain. So 11 out of the 15 supported. 11 out of the 15 submitters supported this, supported the changes, stating that it was important that the public understands appropriate use of these spaces for all users. Question 3 was more of an open-ended question, just to see if we had captured the key issues that the bylaw should be regulating. And the key themes that people talked about was damage to parks, health and safety, noise nuisance, protecting the environment, and public and private usage of parks, and a point around the use of parks for profit. So this was really open-ended, but what we were trying to check was that the bylaw currently did regulate the vast majority of these issues. Moving on to the fees and structures. Fee structure. So the proposed bylaw does create the ability for council to charge fees for bookings, but it doesn't set what the fees are, and those are handled outside the bylaw. We have a current booking fee, which is more or less a flat $50 fee in most cases for booking our open spaces. So we wanted to gauge perspectives on how the fees should be managed, and we put forward a range of different fee structures. So just to clarify, we weren't consulting on the fee amount, but the overall framework for fees. So question 4 asked around which fee structure the public supported, and we provided 3 options. The first was no fee, so that in all bookings, in all cases, this would be free. Fixed base fee, so this was similar to what we have at the moment, that there would be a starting point, a starting fee for everyone, but depending on what the booking was, that fee would go up, or in some cases may be waived. And then the sliding fee was our recommended option, which is that the starting point would depend on a number of different elements, but for community groups, the starting point would be free. The idea there was that it would be a bespoke arrangement rather than always imposing or not imposing fees. So in terms of preferred fee structure, 11 out of the submitters supported the sliding fee, and the reasons there being that they felt that this was the most appropriate, as it allowed the council flexibility to adapt the fee based on who was using the open spaces, what the purpose was. Then we asked people if we were going to use a fixed fee or a sliding fee, which factors should we take into consideration? So as you'll see there, the factors were who's making the booking, what's the space being booked, the presence of alcohol, the potential nuisance of others, and the likely damage to the space. So we asked people to indicate whether they thought these factors were vital, important, not important, etc. So as you can see, in terms of those that were considered to be most vital was who is making the booking, whether it be a community group or a private group or a commercial activity. The likely damage to the space and the potential nuisance and presence of alcohol were all fairly even in terms of people seeing those as vital. The only one that was perhaps seen as certainly less vital and less important was what the space itself was, so whether it be a local park or Virginia Lake, which we did find interesting that people didn't see that as important, as we felt that particularly our premier parks and have a different status in terms of the reserve management plan, but to the public, these other factors were more important to them. Other factors that submitters suggested that we should consider is how long is the booking for? Is it open to the public? What's the intended use? Does it benefit the community? Does it align with our strategy? And does it help activate spaces that are otherwise not used? So that was the end of that section, and then we added one final question that was just really to note that council will retain several other ways of managing fees, such as the ability to waive them altogether or take refundable deposits, and those deposits are necessary when significant damage may be caused in order for us to be able to repair that damage. Of those who commented, one specifically requested a fee waiver for schools. One specifically requested damage should be considered only when it is above and beyond what would be expected from a maximum use of a park. So if you had a whole school activity there, you would expect some damage to the park in terms of grass getting damaged, and that would be considered normal use. Overall, submitters just wanted to highlight that they wanted transparency, and they wanted these spaces to be publicly accessible and to be fair between users and how things are applied. So just to touch on a few other themes which came through in the consultation. Ensuring safety was really important, ensuring that when people are using these spaces that they feel welcome and that they feel safe. The need to remove barriers and create equitable access for all different users and different types of groups, and that how people and groups use and treat the open spaces should keep in line with heritage and cultural considerations. And finally, another key theme that came through, particularly important to those submitting in regards to the coast, was around driving on the dunes. So I think this is an issue that has come up over several years, and Council is aware of this issue, that there are people who are driving on the dunes, particularly in the areas where our community groups such as Coast Care do a lot of planting, and then often motorbikes will come through those areas and cause quite a bit of damage to the plants there. So this type of behaviour continues to be prohibited due to those safety concerns and damage to plant and wildlife. Council has limited enforcement options and resources in this area, and work is underway through Progress Castle Cliff and Ngā Ringaringa Waiwai, who've recently been endorsed to look at the Castle Cliff section of the coastal plan, and they're looking at community-based solutions in terms of how the bylaw can be supported. But the overall feedback was that the community wants to retain the bylaw. It remains an important tool in terms of communication and in terms of signalling as to what is expected. So based on the broad support and the feedback that we've received, both in terms of engagement with key stakeholders such as the fire service, police, iwi hapu, and the feedback that we've received from the community, we recommend that the council revoke the existing bylaw and adopt the new proposed one. And in terms of the fees structure, we recommend that the committee endorses a sliding fee with further operational detail to be worked through by officers. And just to note, there's a bit more work to go in terms of if the sliding fee structure is endorsed by the committee, then we will need to go and look at which factors do we put into the bookings, streamlining the process, creating a simple online form and web page, as we've certainly heard that people want this to be simple, they want it to be easy to find and use with all the information there. And then we need to confirm the fees. There were indicative costs in the statement of proposal, but as mentioned, these will be confirmed outside of the bylaw process. I think that's it from me. So more than happy to take questions, and perhaps we have the full recommendations go up on the screen. As you're aware, with bylaws, there are a full set of standard resolutions we need to consider.
Thank you, Elise. Questions? Councillor Helen.
Thank you, Elise. Good concise summary. In terms of when officers have worked through their recommendations for the fee amounts, is that something that will come back to council in any shape or form? Is there a requirement to do that or not?
I'm not sure there's a strict requirement, but our proposal is to bring it back through fees and charges when we bring that back through.
Usually we approve something through the annual plan, isn't
Yeah.
it, with fees? So that's
So
where it would appear, if it's going to appear?
that's what I've been told will be the process, and I've got nodding over in the corner. So we will bring it back through fees and charges, we'll work through it, in the meantime, we can still get the online form set up and get the information done. But
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Helen. Councillor Rob? No, I've got the wrong one. Sorry. Michael, you go first.
Hey,
I've got it.
you can go.
Sort it out, boys.
No,
You go first.
Councillor Rob.
Okay. And Elise, the bylaw for alcohol and smoking. So you've got all the public places that we're talking about today covered by a bylaw that doesn't allow alcohol or smoke in those areas.
I might need help from Justin. Smoking is not a bylaw, so you remember that was removed as a bylaw and as a policy, and under that policy all parks and reserves and public spaces including beaches are covered, but it's a policy, not a bylaw. Alcohol control limits drinking in public places, and those are marked out spaces. And Justin, is it all public places? No, it's not. It's only specified public places. So it certainly includes all of the CBD area,
Yeah.
includes Kowhai Park, includes Kaiwi over New Year's Eve. So there's specified areas
Thank you.
rather than a blanket ban, and that's to balance the interests of, there are people who want to go to Basin Botanic and have a picnic in summer and bring some beers or some wine, and we don't want to, the feedback is we don't want to fully ban that, but there have been areas that have been identified as being at risk of people gathering and drinking, so that's how those controls have been formed.
Michael?
I probably should know this, but I don't. What is the definition of requiring to book in the first place? Like, why do I need to book?
Oh, right. So it's about balancing everyone's interests. So, for example, if everyone wanted to host an event on the same day, then we would have potential for 3 or 4 different groups taking up the same space. It's also about any preparation that may be needed ahead of time. So we may want to ensure that the lawns are mowed or prepared. There may need to be some additional security or ensuring that gates are unlocked so that people can get vehicle access. In addition, the need for the booking is that after the event, if there has been damage, then there's the potential to claim that back through the deposit. So in things like the extravaganza fair, we would never expect them to turn up without having made a booking or letting council know. There has to obviously be some discretion applied to this. We wouldn't be expecting you to make a booking for your family picnic.
When you mentioned picnic, that's what I meant. If 20 of us want to go have a picnic in the park, I wouldn't have thought of ever booking. So I guess that's the for normal people. That's kind of where my question was coming from. But we could potentially make a booking for 20 people for the park, and that's the kind of people you would get, or is it only for establishments and commercial settings?
No, there will be situations. We've talked about weddings. We've talked about particularly over Christmas, often large groups. For example, the council wanted to host their staff day at Basin Botanic. You would expect that there'd be, that would need to be shared around. Wendy would like to add something.
Come forward and put your mic on, Wendy.
It's also about allowing contractors to have space to do preparation. They might be doing a spraying operation on the turf that morning, and someone's wanting to bring a school in, so we'd want to reprogram that if we can, because it can actually, particularly at places like Cooks, it can get quite tight for contractors to be able to actually meet our requirements and have time to do so. They're limited too. Yeah.
Just to clarify as well, this is for one-off bookings. So this is not for our regular leaseholders. This is for the people who are coming on
And thank you for that clarity, because that's probably a lot more people will book if they probably are aware that they could book as well. So there's that. Do we? And I'm not expecting you to have this information, but it's something I'm interested in. Is do we know what the average cost of the event is costing us in terms of administration, clean-up fees? Do we have that total fee currently right now divided by how many events?
We don't, but it's significantly more than what...
$50.
Significantly more. So I understand there's perhaps a point FTE person who supports the parks team, and this is one of their functions, so it's not solely their job. But we had only 60 bookings, I think, in 1 year at $50, and in many of those cases, I believe, we waived where it was community groups. So it's really, really minimal. This is definitely not something where council is trying to make money out of. This is simply about, and particularly if we're moving to a free process for all community groups and not-for-profits, this is simply about making sure that we ensure the spaces are available, promoted, that maintained where possible. Wendy wants to add in.
Yeah, I mean, part of that cost is we're required to make sure that they, but depending on the event, have appropriate risk management and risk assessment, and that can take a bit of time toing and froing, and depending on what the events are. There's also potentially road closures for some events, so those go to different areas within council. So yeah, it is significantly more in terms of time for some of those events than $50.
I think that's something public needs to be aware of as well. Thank you for that.
Wendy, would you like to just stay there?
Yeah. Thank you, Wendy. Because I think that's something that I think I was unaware of, and I think people would be unaware of, and it's good to understand that. My last question is around the dunes. When we say enforcement, let's say we know exactly who the person is doing it. What is the repercussions of the actions of destroying the dunes with motorbikes?
So if we do know exactly who this person is, we do have the ability to seize property that's been caused in the event. What we don't have the ability to do is issue an infringement notice. So we can't go and give someone a fine. The police should be contacted in all cases of dangerous driving, because they are the authority to manage that behaviour. We also, in terms of resource, the dunes are a large area. People are often going out in the evenings or after hours, weekends. It would be extremely difficult for council officers to be out on the dunes actively patrolling them as well. It would come, at a large cost as well. So we're looking at other ways in which these areas can be protected. And as mentioned, through the work with Progress Castle, Cliff Narding and Awaewa, I think it needs to be led by the community and come from the community as to the solutions that are going to work for them.
That makes sense, but we can seize their property.
We can, if we know exactly who it is.
Yep.
That's correct, Justin?
So we can seize their property and give a $500 fine for them to release it?
No, we can't give fines. That's it. We can't give a fine. We can't give an infringement notice.
So I go on there with my motorbike and you seize it. How do I get it back?
That process will need to be explained by Justin, but the thing is we can't go and give someone a fine because central government has not given us the ability to do that. No, they have not granted that notice, that permission under the Overriding Act. So, and all councils are in the same situation. This is the situation nationally. I do want to reiterate that driving on the dunes is a challenge for any council that has a coastal environment.
So through Chair, possibly a good way of thinking about it is police are responsible for the vehicle use, so they are responsible for any moving vehicle or offences, and they're the only ones under Land Transport Act who can actually enforce that. Under our bylaw, what our bylaw gives us the ability to do is to recoup costs for damage to our or to council reserves, or for someone who has breached our bylaw. Now, the issue around that is being able to positively identify those people accurately, so that you can actually get those costs back through a court process. that is, or that can be challenging at times. The dunes specifically as well, because it's not actively monitored. There aren't cameras there. You might proving who that person might be. Now, where those rules are probably far more effective is, for example, if someone came to Cook's Gardens, as an example, we've got cameras there, we've got a lot more surveillance. We could probably identify who, what, and where. Whereas one of the issues that we've got with the dunes, there's multiple access points. There's multiple entry and access points. You can go onto the beach, off the beach, or as part of that. There's also, or like you said, there's a culture. The times that people are using it aren't often the times that our staff are actually around, and even if our staff were, knowing it's happening and getting to the site is also a challenge. And that's something that we've dealt with the speed management rules on Castle Cliff Beach as well.
And just to clarify, sorry, Madam Chair, I've taken too much time, but just to clarify, it's the person we need to identify, not the vehicle.
Correct.
Because if I have a number plate, I can't just go and take that vehicle and seize it.
You have to, or my understanding is that it belongs to the person it's a personal, not a vehicle, and that's the difference. Like, for example, a parking offence goes to the vehicle,
okay,
whereas it's not a parking offence, or in the same way, it doesn't attach to the vehicle.
I see your problem now. Yeah, that makes sense.
So even if you know the vehicle, you then have to prove the person that was actually in the vehicle, for example.
Yeah, because it'd be a lot simpler if the hoons were on camera and we just go and take their vehicle and crush it. You won't have any people doing it again, will you? Thank you for that. Crush them. Could you imagine if we crushed all the vehicles? They wouldn't do it again.
Michael, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to phrase my comment as a question to the Chair and to Elise, and it segues into the dunes matter. Number one, is there I'm not
Ross.
sorry?
This is question time.
Yes. Question one is although I'm not a fan of signage, is there any consideration that signage at 1 or 2 points indicating that your vehicle may be seized to recover costs to possible damage of the dunes or vegetation is a consideration for council to do? That's the first question. Number two, the second question is, this is an issue that the council's had to face for a number of years, and the residents are up in arms, and we know other councils with dunes have this issue as well. Because government has not provided legislation to issue infringement fees, what is the mechanism, if it's not through LGNZ, that council or councils plural can be proactive and take this to government and say, we need the ability to issue infringement fees?
With regards to signage, there is existing signage and that's in place, and there's further discussions happening through the Coastal Action Plan around what other signage or what other mechanisms may be considered. You didn't mention access and blockage points, but those have been considered in the past or put in place, and then what we've found is that people will just easily go around it, and you can't put a fence around an entire dune system. It wouldn't work. In terms of your point about going up to central government, I mean, that's certainly something we could consider in a future remit and something that we have done in the past.
Madam Chair, if that's appropriate as an action.
Hang on.
Oh, sorry, Madam Chair, if that's appropriate, if that could be noted as a possible action to explore that with other councils for representation to government?
I think what we've just been told is that's already happened, and I don't want to close down the discussion on where we're talking about the dunes and damage to the dunes. I think it's very well accepted that we need to deal with it, but we've been advised by the officers that Turanga Waiwai are looking at it from a community perspective and what a response might be. So, yeah, it's a good discussion, but I think there is action happening in that space about how damage to the dunes can be better managed. Elise?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we wait for the report back from Progress Castle Cliff Ngā Ringaringa Waiwai when they come back to us, and talk to them then about what the community said, because there is certainly a mix of views in the community. I wanted to acknowledge that you know, there is a range of views, and I agree with the chair that I think it should be led through the community first. Yeah.
So thanks, Elise. Thank you, Ross. Charlie. Yeah, okay. Who's first? Go, Julian.
Kia ora. Kia ora. In line with,
Hang on.
in line with council views on the sand dunes and
It's off.
council control.
You turn it off. Just lead the right, push the right, and Kate will put you on.
Is he one?
Needs to be red. No, needs to be red. There you go.
In line with council views on sand dunes, car parks, how would does the council recognise the sporting venue that's coming about now of Puriki Slipway? And we're getting hundreds of people down there now using that slipway for wakaama. We're getting groups from out of town coming, using that slipway. We're concerned over there about the damage done to the car park, potholes everywhere. And this is a relatively new sporting event that's starting to take place. It could certainly get wheels on it if it was looked after and become an asset to Whanganui of bringing revenue in, as well as people using our river venue. So we're a little bit concerned over the car park over there that's full of potholes, no toilets or anything like that. People actually knock on my door, Judd, can I use your toilet? Certainly. But, and it's getting quite a volume of people there. Would council recognise that as being a council-controlled sporting venue?
It's a good question.
Thank you. That's,
I might let Wendy answer, because this is certainly straying into the operational detail. What I am thinking though, Judd, is we should probably link staff up with you and anyone else who needs to be involved, as there may be a community, this sounds like it may be a community initiative that we could bring through the new business case process.
we certainly have a community involvement behind it that's been formed to drive it.
Yeah, so we'll link up and make sure we share the information about the new community initiatives that are being brought through the Aspirations Committee. I think that would probably be the better committee.
I'm fine with that response, but the bigger question is how was the AWA fit into the Parks and Open Spaces strategy is kind of my first question. And is the car park, I guess an extension of that is is that contemplated in our parks and open strategies?
In terms of Pūtiki, got it, the jetty, not the jetty, the slipway falls into the parks and open spaces portfolio, and with regard to that, there's a little bit of work due to happen. In terms of the potholes, we can do some immediate work. I'll have to check it out because some of it's roading and some of it is parks. So I'm not quite sure there, but I was just going to suggest the community route for that.
Okay. What does the community route mean?
Going through the business case proposal system. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
You all right with that, Julian?
Oh, you've given me
there
a
is a
pathway.
process.
Yeah. Thank you.
And certainly I hadn't contemplated the AWA or structures on the AWAs being considered within this policy bylaw. Philippa.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I think just two questions. Just following on around the dunes issue in Castle Cliff. Thanks for the response. I guess you know, submitters, obviously they're talking about things like education and talking to motorbike clubs and other education. And I guess hopefully that all comes through Progress Castle Cliff. But I guess
I'm
my
sure it will,
question was
Philippa.
around the
Yes,
role
question.
of Safe for Wanganui, community patrols in this. Like, I mean, just as a, you know, parent head of, you know, just as a, I think there's people, you know, I had a son who, you know, you get a motorbike from at a certain time, you know, a little bit of a trail bike, and really, if you don't know, you think, what's a good place for them to go and reasonably safely get on their motorbike? And, you know, you'll think, well, let's get them out to the beach rather than have them on the road, because these. So I think it's wider than, with respect, just Progress Castle Cliff. I think it's about, you know, as submitters are saying, my question is, you know, further education, going through schools, going through motorbike clubs, you know, places where people buy these things, or young people in schools, and, you know, it's answering those submitters. And I guess I'm thinking Safe for Wanganui, obviously community patrols, I'm sure they do some work around there, but I would just like to, you know, ask a wider question. I don't think it's confined to just the Castle Cliff community. I think it's the wider community understanding where our young people can safely do these things, but also, you know, etc.
I'm going to answer what I think is just about a question. I would expect the response from Progress Castle Cliff in Ngā Ringawaiwai to be a response, a community response, not just a Castle Cliff response, because I think you're absolutely right. There has got to be an educative, you know, a whole of system, if you like, response to the issue. So hopefully that'll satisfy what wasn't really a question.
Yeah, it was a, like I say, Safe for Wanganui obviously I think has a role in this.
We can pick it up at Safe for Wanganui, but I'm not quite sure how, what their response would be. You've mentioned community patrols.
Well, it's just you have groups, don't you, like Sport Wanganui, you have representation from Ministry of Education,
Yep.
etc., who are sitting around that table, and it would seem to me that, you know,
I will put it on
yeah,
their agenda.
yeah.
Thank you, Philippa.
Awesome. My second part is just if we're going to be making decisions here, I don't know if, in regard to submission 4 of Rachel, where is the Otamatea Reserve, her questions going to be dealt with? They're not going to be dealt with today, but where are we looking to, can just be clarity if I didn't understand, where is that looking to go? Because it's not going to be, she's not going to get an answer when we make these decisions.
Well, actually, Wendy's come along to the meeting, especially to talk to Rachel afterwards. But Elise, you might like to respond, and perhaps Wendy, do you want to add, if you want to add anything?
Yes, sorry, I did mean to respond to that directly. Apologies. We are in contact with the dog club, and the parks team's been working up there, as you heard through Rob's question. Also, there is the community initiatives process that we've started. So we'll also be sharing that information with all submitters, and where they had projects, inviting them to submit them through that process. I don't have anything further to add. Wendy, did you? No. So conversations already happening. Yep.
All right. Charlie, hang on, I'm just...
Thank you, Elise. This question's probably already been answered, but it still remains lost to me. When does a group become a group? Like, if Michael and I are having a picnic, that's clearly not a group, but if 10 of us are having a picnic, is that a group? And then who has discretion as to whether they're charged or not?
Good point. This is detail, I think, to be worked through. We've said community groups and not-for-profit if they are making the booking. So if someone is making a booking on behalf of, that's where the consideration for not charging anything would be taken into account as to who is making the booking. So I don't think the size of the group.
I guess the question is when does one decide that they should be making a booking, or just rocking up and enjoying themselves?
Ultimately, if people rock up and just start something, we can't prevent that. And to be frank, we want as many people out and about. I really want to reiterate, we want as many people in our community out and about using these spaces as possible, and using them in lots of different ways, be it picnics or sports, events, etc. This is particularly the changes to promote the bookings, and if the change to a sliding structure is agreed, this is all about making it more available and accessible to people. But if people choose not to make a booking, we're not going to be enforcing that. It's really something that's out of courtesy in terms of making a booking. I think we'll take a look when we're doing the booking form as to what we consider to be a group, whether that's 20 people or more, and how that feeds into the booking system. But that hasn't been defined yet.
Is there a risk that the people who make the booking will not make the booking because they're going to be charged?
The fee structure that we're proposing is that fees should only be applied where it's a commercial interest. Now, if someone wants to go and put up a coffee cart or a food cart somewhere, I think it's reasonable that you would expect to pay a permit to go there. The costs that we're looking at are fairly low. So we had been looking at $50 a day for a commercial event, and $30 for an independent commercial trader for a day. So those costs are fairly minimal. And as we've talked about before, these costs are not reflective of the costs for council to administer and provide the services that we've talked about. Do you want to add, Wendy?
It's always going to be a certain amount of subjectivity. You can try and make it black and white, but I think even if it's a non-commercial event, if there's potential for damage, like they're wanting to bring in bouncy castles, they're wanting to set up marquees, then it starts to step over the line a wee bit, and it's not necessarily all about numbers of people. Like we often get companies wanting to do their Christmas events there, that sort of thing, and we do at the moment it's $50 just to book a space, and then they actually have a license that allows them to have that space. So but we don't police it, as Elise has said, so it we just hope there isn't too much of a conflict of interest.
All right. Oh, Helen, I was about to wind up.
My very last question is for clarification. I would have thought that people might want to book a space because then they know that when they turn up, hopefully it's their space. That's an advantage of a booking system, right? You know, because if you want to have an event at a place and you're telling everybody, it's nice to know you've got it secured. So there's a big advantage of having a booking system, is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah, particularly if you're booking for a wedding, you may want to know that when you turn up you can access it, and we can't guarantee that no one else is going to make a booking, we can't guarantee that no one else is going to turn up on the day, but we can at least say if two people are trying to book a wedding at Basin on the same day, we can say there's already a wedding booked. So yeah, there's certainly an advantage. I think it's about getting the balance of interests right, and as Wendy said, we're not going to come up with a perfect system, but we're going to try and improve the system and promote it and make it available. I can answer the question about the awa, if that's helpful. So this bylaw only relates to places under the control of council, and the awa is not under council control. So it says a public place is a place that at any material time is under control of council, is open to being used by the public, whether free or on payment of a charge, and includes any road, whether or not it is under the control of council, but any road in the district. So the awa is not included, but access points to the awa would be.
My question was going to be the slipways are included.
The slipway is, but not the awa itself.
Right. Thank you very much for that clarification. Wendy, did you want to add something? No. put your,
Goes into,
start again, please.
Sorry, there is a wee bit of overlap with the slipway because it actually goes into the hour. And so if we're doing work on or around, which we've just come up against recently, we then need to follow process on that with iwi.
All right, thank you very much. Let's head to the recommendations, eh? So we've got a suite of them sitting up there. That we're going to revoke the existing bylaw, that we're going to adopt the new bylaw with minor amendments as proposed in the bylaw that's in our papers today. And we're going to confirm that a bylaw is the most appropriate way of addressing the issues arising from misuse of public spaces. The proposed Public Places Bylaw 2023 is the most appropriate form of bylaw, and that the proposed Public Places Bylaw 2023 is not inconsistent with the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act 1990, and endorse a sliding fee structure for bookings for parks and public spaces. So that is the recommendations that I'm putting to you, and it looks like Philippa would like to second that. Thank you, Philippa. Would anybody like to speak to the recommendations? It's quite heady, Philippa, being able to control this thing.
It is, isn't it? It's quite difficult.
Go for it.
Quite. We need a wee diploma in it. Look, thank you. Yeah, I want to thank the staff for the work done on this, and the chair and councillors for going through this. I think it is, while we may not have many submissions, I think they're of a really high quality, and I think, you know, in the end, it's a fine balance between appropriate use versus easy and affordable access. I think we can see the benefits of needing to have a bylaw and a bit of a booking system, so that we don't have, you know, suddenly about, you know, 3 or 4 weddings turning up in the same place, and etc. And I guess around, you know, misuse in regard to, you know, perhaps alcohol and you know, some disturbance that can go on, and our parks getting damaged. But, you know, through some of the submissions, and, you know, for example, I think really important, you know, the submission of Sport Wanganui, Chief Executive Danny Jonas, where he really talks about that the current system booking fee of $50 is really a barrier to many community groups, and we want to remove those barriers. I mean, the importance of healthy and active communities, and people having, you know, people able to have easy access and affordable access. Removing that booking fee for many of our community groups, I think, is a really good move, and our schools, etc. So, you know, obviously I do, you know, I think we have got a strong indication of the booking fee, so I've got some good comfort that they're not going to be excessive in any way, and they're going to be appropriate. So I'm very happy to support these recommendations. Thank you.
Thanks, Philippa. Charlotte.
Well said. I think through the submissions, there was one really clear theme, which, as my colleague has just said, is to remove barriers and to activate these, you know, our beautiful parks as much as possible. So I will very much be supporting this, and I'd like to, as well, thank the staff for all the work that has been put into this.
Thanks, Charlotte. Rob.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, of course, I will support this as well. It's been raised in the submissions about the sand dunes, and I'm not sure that everybody was understanding that nothing changes by what we're doing today, that driving a vehicle of any sort, whether it's a motorbike, whether it's a car, whether it's a quad bike, is prohibited activity in the sand dunes. But in saying that, it also says in the report that further the council is not resourced to proactively patrol the dunes. Now, this brings up an issue which is a very serious issue for this council and I think for the community, because we've got a myriad of these bylaws, whether it's in littering, whether it's in illegal waste dumping, whether it's in freedom camping. There's a whole myriad of them. But we are not resourcing the enforcement of these bylaws. And that's what I think we have to address. You know, and in the long-term plan, I hope that is addressed. You know, we used to have people on this council that would go out and undertake these activities. And they were across a range of activities, right into building control. That was their role. They were enforcement people. But we don't have them anymore. Each activity is responsible for their own enforcement, and they're not resourced to provide it. So we're getting this situation. So that's what I would like to see, Madam Chair, taken on board about the enforcement of these bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Any further speakers? Perhaps I'll just close with a couple of comments. Thank you to the team. If you'd pass our thanks on to Hannah for her good work, and you did very well this morning presenting and covering off issues. I don't think we've got any questions that are going to come back later, Elise. So well done you. I think it's very clear from the submissions and certainly the discussion around the table the importance of allowing open access and if paying a fee is a barrier to some groups to use our parks, then absolutely support what's being proposed here in terms of a sliding scale and charities and schools, etc., being allowed to use these spaces for free. It seems very clear that there are benefits from booking, particularly for a large group, but I would hate for us to paint the picture that you need to book to go and use a park. If you've got a big gathering, yeah, sure, but for even a moderate, family get-together or picnic, depending on the size of your family, we wouldn't want to have to book, would we? And we certainly don't want to convey that message. So, and I'm not hearing that from officers, but we need to be careful not to over-legislate in this space. So thank you very much for your work on this. Thank you for the discussion. Thank you to the submitters, particularly to Rachel who presented to us today. We'll put the recommendation as I've read out, and it is up on the screen from A through D. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Anybody against? Motion carried. Thank you. What do I have to do next? Just close the meeting? Okay, so this is going to council tomorrow. And, as you've seen in the recommendation, that we are recommending that this be adopted by council. So you will see this back in front of you tomorrow morning. Thank you for your attendance. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll close the meeting with a karakia. Thank you, Julian.
Ki te ao marama, haumea, hui e, taiki e. I acknowledge, greet those things above, the sky, the universe, the heavens. I acknowledge and greet those things below, the earth in all its entirety. Let's suspend the words, the discussion, debate, negotiations. The work covered, the pillar of the house, as the treasure point of importance to be revisited at a later time. So we may enter into enlightenment. Let it be bound and fixed, yes, fixed. Let it be agreed by all.
Thank you, everybody.